August, the number up by 37.61% year-on-year from August 2019.
Sehingga dengan adanya pandemi ini, maka kita bisa lihat bahwa tingkat pengangguran terbuka di Indonesia pada bulan Agustus tahun 2020 ini mengalami kenaikan dari 5,23% menjadi 7,07%.
Some 29.12 million people, or 14.2% of the country's workforce, have been affected by the pandemic. From a total of 24 million people have worked short their hours, 1.7 million people have been furloughed, while 2.56 million have lost their jobs, and 760,000 people are no longer considered as a part of the workforce. From Jakarta, Rajo Patmo for IDX Channel.
Ministry of Manpower confirmed that the second phase of salary subsidy allowance for workers with salary below 5 million rupiah will be started to distributed at the end of this week.
Ministry of Manpower confirmed that the second phase of salary subsidy allowance for workers with salary below 5 million rupiah will be started to distribute at the end of this week. So far, the ministry is still completing the data of salary subsidy recipients to be matched with the taxpayers' data in the Finance Ministry. This step is taken to be in accordance with Corruption Eradication Commission's direction. The Minister of Manpower, Ida Fauzia, hopes that the process will be finished this Friday, so that the subsidy will be directly distributed at the end of this week.
Sekarang dalam proses pemadanan data untuk memastikan bahwa penerima program subsidi upah itu sesuai dengan peraturan Menteri Ketenagakerjaan, mereka yang upah yang dilaporkan di bawah 5 juta. Mudah-mudahan hari ini atau besok bisa selesai. Begitu selesai data itu dikonfirmasi oleh DCP, mudah-mudahan waktunya 3 hari lagi ya. Mudah-mudahan minggu ini benar-benar bisa tersalurkan untuk tahap keduanya.
Previously, the government has disbursed salary subsidy as much as 1.2 million rupiah each worker for September and October period. The first phase of salary subsidy distribution has reached 98.7%. From Jakarta, Muhammad Olga for IDX Channel.
Aside from states' unemployment rate peaked at 7% in August, Statistik Indonesia indicated major decrease in average national labor wage in August 2020 compared to last year's average. Statistik Indonesia stated that the average national labor wage was 2.76 million rupiah per month in August 2020, or a decrease of 5.18% compared to August 2019. In detail, Jakarta is the province with the highest labor wage, namely 4.22 million rupiah per month, while West Sulawesi is the province with the lowest labor wage of 2.07 million rupiah per month.
Maka rata-rata upah gaji buruh atau karyawan pada bulan Agustus 2020 ini adalah sebesar 2,76 juta rupiah. Kalau kita bandingkan dengan rata-rata upah buruh pada tahun 2019 yang lalu, pada bulan Agustus, berarti rata-rata upah gaji buruh.
After touching a lifetime high in the previous month, Indonesia's foreign exchange reserve declined by $1.5 billion.
Indonesia's foreign exchange reserve dropped by $1.5 billion in October to $133.7 billion, mainly due to the government's foreign debt payments, as the central bank said. Head of Communications Department at Central Bank, Oni Wijanarko, stated that the October reserve level could cover the cost of 9.7 months of imports. Even though it is decreased, but still it is capable to support external resilience and keep macroeconomic stability. From all sources, IDX Channel.
Market headlines will be right back after the break. Stay tuned.
bagaimana outlook UMKM di 2020 ini, Pak Leona?
Saya ingin mengajak terutama anak-anak muda bagaimana caranya supaya nantinya ini bisa berkooperasi dengan baik. Dan ini sudah dimulai.
Sebetulnya industri hilir itu lokal itu udah siap. Jadi pemerintah juga nggak perlu lagi menarik investor untuk industri hilir. Jadi pemerintah cukup menarik investor untuk industri bahan baku.
Welcome back. Even though Indonesia's GDP contracted 3.49% on an annual basis in the third quarter, Finance Minister said the worst is over. This is because the minister sees that quarterly Indonesia has experienced recovery signs in many sectors.
The country fell into recession for the first time since 1998. However, Finance Minister Sri Mulyani says that the recession is not the end. A contraction in private consumption and investment had eased the third quarter after suffering bigger blows in the previous 3 months.
Hampir semua sektor mengalami perbaikan atau turning point. Ini artinya di kuartal ketiga ini menunjukkan the worst is over, atau hal yang paling buruk, dampak terburuk dari COVID yang terjadi di kuartal kedua sudah kita lewati dan sekarang kita di dalam tahap pemulihan. Sektor yang terpukul pada triwulan 2 yang telah mengalami perbaikan sangat nyata seperti transportasi dan pergudangan.
The things that Minister highlights are more to government moves to control the coronavirus outbreak and ensure public discipline with health protocols. Those factors will determine whether the economy could further recover and see a GDP expansion in the fourth quarter. From all sources, IDX Channel.
First of all, what is a recession? We can call a country has entered recession if by 2 consecutive quarters a country suffers negative growth, and this is what exactly Indonesia has been through. Indonesia has officially entered its first recession since the 1998 Asian financial crisis, as its economy contracts again in the third quarter this year. Statistic Indonesia indicated all gross domestic product components fell amid the persistent rise in COVID-19 cases. And to get deeper view, let's see the first graphic regarding Indonesia's GDP condition from 2019 to 2020. I guess it's fair enough if we concluded, or if we conclude what happened in 2019 on Indonesia's economic growth was quite stable. But what happened entering 2020, Indonesia's economic growth keeps on corrected. And as we see from the graphic, in the second quarter of 2020, Indonesia's economic growth decreased to the level of minus 5.32%. Meantime, the latest data about Indonesia's economic growth in the third quarter of this year, Indonesia's economic growth corrected to the level of minus 3.49%. And well, actually, it is not a surprise. As forecast earlier, the Indonesian economy will contract in the third quarter of 2020 and the country would fall into recession. And yes, it comes true, sadly. The figure is worse than the 3% contraction forecast by a Reuters poll of analysts, as well as President Joko Widodo's expectation. And luckily, it is still narrower than the second quarter contraction of 5.32%. And if we talk about regions, there are regions that are more heavily impacted than other regions. Let's take a look on the next graphic. This is regions with highest regional economic growth correction. In second quarter of 2020, Java corrected to the level of 6.69%. Meantime, in the third quarter, Java was corrected, or Java's economic growth corrected to the level of -4%. Meantime, Bali and Nusa in second quarter of 2020 was corrected to the level of -6.32%. Meantime, for the third quarter of 2020, Bali and Nusa corrected to 6.8%. Yeah, but then regions began to gradually lift the large-scale social restrictions and cities began reopening in June. Economic activity started stirring again in the third quarter. Therefore, regional governments believe that fourth quarter will be better than the third quarter. And however, although the economy continued to contract, the Jakarta Composite Index went up 1.85% following the recession announcement, while the rupiah appreciated 0.89% against the United States dollar. Well, some of you may be questioning, how can recession bring good market response? The answer is there was a significant improvement in economic activity compared to the second quarter. We can examine more on quarter-to-quarter movement. Let's see on the next graphic. This is Indonesia's economic growth from quarter to quarter. The first quarter in 2020, it was in the level of 2.4%, or -2.4% to be exact. And the second quarter, -4.19%. And in the third quarter, it was grow by 5.05%. Finance Minister Sri Mulyani sees that recession is not the end. She delivered her popular quote as the worst is over. A contraction is or in private consumption and investment had eased in the third quarter after suffering bigger blows in the previous quarter. Of course, we are hoping that economic activity will further improve in the fourth quarter with loosening social restrictions. And one good thing is Indonesia is not alone. The swift and massive shock of the coronavirus pandemic and shutdown measures to contain it have plunged the global economy into a severe contraction. At least we can apply Liverpool's motto here, you never walk alone. Pandemic hits worldwide and global world is now facing the same problem. Let's examine other countries' economic growth in 2020 so far. Yeah, as you can see, Indonesia, the data, it is shown in the graphic. In the first quarter of 2020, the growth of Indonesia's economic reached 2.97%. And as I mentioned to you before, the 2 quarters of Indonesia's economic growth corrected to the minus zone. Meantime, US, if you're talking about the growth in the third quarter, it was corrected to 2.9%. Meantime, for China, if we focus on what happened in the third quarter this year, it grew by 4.9%. Meantime, Singapore, in the third quarter of 2020, it was corrected to the level of -7%. Meantime, in the second quarter of 2020, Singapore economic growth corrected to the level of 13.2%. And according to World Bank forecast, the global economy will shrink by 5.2% this year. That would represent the deepest recession since the Second World War. Terrible, isn't it? And don't forget, this global crisis can negatively affect your personal finances too. When an economy is in recession, financial risks increase, jobs and income are less stable, even household spending generally dips. So don't forget to keep your personal finances afloat while Indonesia's economy takes a beating. And we hope government can take concrete steps to deal with economic recession on account of the COVID-19 pandemic. Stay tuned on Market Headlines because we'll be right back after the break.
Pergerakan indeks harga saham gabungan sepanjang perdagangan hari ini tertekan, level 5 ribuan kembali ditinggalkan. Bagaimana analisis Anda?
Masih ada peluang turun lebih lanjut. Kalau misalkan regionalnya memerah, nah maka tidak tentu kemungkinan kita juga akan ketularan kan.
Dan beberapa perbankan yang diduga melakukan transaksi mencurigakan dan semoga bisa menjadi salah satu referensi untuk Anda dan seperti apa ke depannya.
Hello, I'm Clara Antawijaya. I'm Associate Producer and News Presenter on Market Headlines. As Market Headlines starts at 4:30 p.m., which is in line with the closing market, therefore we summarize the market conditions only for you. And my job in here as a journalist, I give concise and accurate news for the audience. And also, being a journalist is not only a job for me, but it is also a passion.
Pembahasan pasal demi pasal Omnibus Law RUU Cipta Kerja menimbulkan berbagai polemik.
Nolak RUU Omnibus Law khususnya klaster ketenaga kerjaan yang kami anggap mendegradasi hak-hak pekerja Indonesia.
BPS mengumumkan terjadi deflasi di bulan September.
Tapi di sisi lain, hampir seluruh sektor produktif ini mengalami pertumbuhan yang minus, maka perbankan pasti akan mengalami kesulitan untuk menyalurkan pembiayaan.
For the last segment, at the Jakarta Composite Index intraday movement, earlier today, JCI was opened at the level of 5,276.16. Then, approaching the closing time of a session, the index was at the level of 5,288.8. Then the index was showing a strengthening trend by the second session closing time. Index was closed at the level of 5,335.53. In short, JCI went up 1.43%. And next, we're going to see the sectoral movement leading the dynamics of today's trading. We got Miss Industry as the leader of the strengthening trend that went up 4.55%. Basic Industry went up 2.31%. Manufacture went up 2.03%. And Infrastructure went up 1.49%. And moving on to top gainers and top losers, here are the key highlights from today's trading session. BBCA went up 2.44%. Meantime, Telkom went up 2.17%. BBNI went up 2.69%, and Astra International went up 5.91%. Meantime, this is the top losers for today's trading. We got BRIS went down 2.77%, and we have LPPF went down 6.9%, and we have WIIM or WIM went down 0.98%. And Friend went down 3.03% to the level of 64 rupiah per share. And next, we're going to see the intraday movement of rupiah towards US dollar. Open at the level of 14,321 rupiah was also showing strengthening trend towards US dollar. It was closed at the level of 14,308. In summary, rupiah went up 0.56%. As revenue increased, XL Axiata recorded 2.07 trillion rupiah net profit in the first 9 months of 2020, or jumped up more than 300% year-on-year.
XL Axiata posted 2.07 trillion rupiah net profit in the first 9 months of 2020, or grew significantly by 316.32% year-on-year. The increasing net profit led to a higher profit per share that hit 194 rupiah. By the end of September 2020, the company obtained 19.65 trillion rupiah revenue, or up by almost 5% year-on-year, which is contributed by data revenue growth as much as 13.35%. Meantime, in the other side, non-data revenue decreased to only 2.24 trillion rupiah, but it was balanced by a lower expenses such as infrastructure costs that declined to only 6 trillion rupiah and marketing sales cost that was recorded only 1.35 trillion rupiah. From all sources for IDX Channel.
State-owned telecommunication provider Telecom Indonesia posted a slight net profit growth in the third quarter this year. The company's net profit only grew 1.3% year-on-year.
State-owned telecommunication provider Telecom Indonesia successfully obtained 16.68 net profit in the end of third quarter this year. The net profit grew by 1.3% year-on-year. The achievement led the company's net profit margin increase to 16.7%. The profit growth was contributed by strong consolidation revenue that reached almost 100 trillion rupiah until the end of September 2020. From subsidiary side, Telkomsel recorded digital business growth as much as 10.6%, where data services dominated the growth and contributed 73.2% of total Telkomsel's revenue. Meantime, IndiHome posted 16.1 trillion rupiah revenue, or inclined double digit by 17.1% year-on-year. From all sources for IDX Channel.
The COVID-19 task force and government ensures that the COVID-19 vaccine will be available soon. Regarding that, the government guarantees that the vaccine is proven safe and has passed clinical trials.
The government, through Health Ministry, is currently focused to finish the COVID-19 vaccination roadmap. The roadmap will later become the guidance in vaccination. While the roadmap is in the finalization stage, spokesperson of COVID-19 Task Force, Wicky Adrian, admits that there is still confusing information about vaccines.
Saya ingin menghimbau agar masyarakat tidak resah dan khawatir karena pemerintah pasti akan menyediakan vaksin yang terbukti aman dan lolos uji klinis efektif sesuai dengan rekomendasi dari WHO.
Until now, we could say that WHO is optimistic that the researchers are able to develop safe and effective COVID-19 vaccine, which has already entered the phase 3 of clinical trials. Meantime, the government itself is continuously accelerating the logistic and human resources preparation for COVID-19 vaccination. From all sources for IDX Channel.
The COVID-19 task force reminds people with comorbidities to always implement health protocols and conducts continuous efforts to maintain their immunity. The COVID-19 task force's expert on behavioral changes, Turo Wong Karen, said that whether comorbidities or not, all people must implement health protocols and should be able to change behavior. Meantime, to improve immunity, all people should ensure that they have enough sleeping time, consume multivitamin and minerals. At the same time, the task force also urged people to always practice 3M protocols, which are using face mask, apply physical distancing, and often washing hands with soap and overflowing water.
Ada 3 hal yang biasanya kita sebut dengan iman, kemudian imun, dan aman. Jadi kalau iman itu berkaitan dengan dari diri dalam kita sendiri, berhubungan dengan yang Maha Esa, ya, dengan Tuhan. Dari situ diharapkan kita juga bisa mendapatkan ketenangan hati, karena itu penting. Hati yang gembira itu adalah obat, katanya. Jadi itu sangat penting. Ditambah juga minum berbagai multivitamin, khususnya vitamin C, B kompleks, dan D, dan beberapa mineral seperti zinc. Itu yang.
And step aside from market condition as coronavirus pandemic takes a big role on current economic situation. And here it is an update data about coronavirus globally. Many news close our market headlines today. Please enjoy our next program on IDX Channel, your trustworthy economic, business, and capital market channel. And before saying goodbye, I would like to remind you on what Mom said. Please do comply with health protocol by using masks, physical distancing, and also avoiding crowd. Also washing your hand often with soap through overflowing water. I'm Wicky Adrian. Have a nice evening and stay safe.